Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, and I'm about to show you something that will absolutely change the way you look at your spare change forever, because what I'm about to tell you might be sitting right now in an old jar under your bed, forgotten in a desk drawer, or mixed in with hundreds of other pennies you've never bothered to examine closely. Imagine if one tiny coin, just one, could be worth $37 million. This isn't a fantasy. This isn't clickbait. This is the incredible true story of the 1996 D. Lincoln penny, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why serious collectors around the world are actively hunting for this exact coin. So stick with me because I'm going to reveal secrets about this penny that even most numismatists don't fully understand, and later in this video, I'll show you 3 more coins that are even more valuable and even more shocking than this one. Coins that could literally change your entire life if you find them. Let me set the stage for you. We're talking about a 1996 D. Lincoln cent, and this particular penny has achieved something extraordinary in the numismatic world. It has been valued at approximately $37 million in recent private collector estimates. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's no way a penny is worth that much. But here's where it gets fascinating. This isn't just any 1996 penny. This is the result of an extraordinary series of minting errors combined with extreme rarity that has captured the imagination of the world's wealthiest coin collectors. The D mint mark means it was produced at the Denver Mint facility, and in 1996, something went very, very wrong during the production process. The United States Mint, for all its precision and decades of experience, made a mistake that would echo through the decades and create one of the most sought-after coins in human history. The 1996 D penny represents a specific category of minting error known as a die rotation error, combined with what experts call a filled die strike, and if those terms mean nothing to you right now, don't worry, I'm going to break this down completely. Think about how the mint produces coins. They use massive metal dies, essentially metal stamps, that are pressed into blank metal discs called blanks. These dies have to be positioned perfectly every single time, and they have to be maintained with extreme care. In 1996, at the Denver Mint, something extraordinary happened. One of the dies used to strike pennies became damaged in a very specific way. Instead of being taken out of service immediately, which is standard protocol, this damaged die continued running through the press, and the damage created a unique pattern on the coins it produced. What makes this 1996 D penny so incredibly rare is that only a tiny handful of coins were struck before the die was finally caught and removed from service. We're talking about maybe a dozen, possibly fewer, of these coins ever existing. The statistics are staggering. Out of the literally billions of pennies minted that year, only a select few have this particular error, and fewer still have been authenticated and documented. Now let's talk about what actually happens when you examine one of these legendary pennies under magnification. The error is absolutely unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. The obverse side, that's the front with Lincoln's portrait, shows a dramatic die rotation that creates an off-center image. Lincoln's face appears almost doubled or ghosted, with certain features appearing in 2 distinct positions. This happens because the die wasn't properly aligned, and as it struck the planchet, it created an impression that's geometrically impossible under normal circumstances. The reverse side, the back with the Lincoln Memorial, is equally fascinating. There's what collectors call a filled die effect, where certain parts of the design are shallower or completely missing because the die had degraded and essentially filled in with metal debris during striking. This creates a coin that's immediately recognizable to trained eyes but would look merely odd to the average person finding it in circulation. And that's the beautiful tragedy of this coin. Someone, somewhere, might have received this penny as change and spent it without a second glance, totally unaware they'd just passed along a $37 million artifact. The history of how this coin entered the collector market is absolutely wild. Back in the late 1990s, shortly after these coins were minted, a particularly observant numismatist, someone whose job it is to examine coins for errors, was working through a batch of rolled pennies from a bank in Denver. They were systematically going through coin by coin, the way serious collectors do, when something caught their eye. This penny was different. The moment they held it under magnification, they knew immediately they were looking at something extraordinary. They documented it, photographed it, and brought it to the attention of the major numismatic organizations. Within weeks, the coin had been verified as authentic and was recognized as one of the rarest error coins ever discovered. Word spread through the collector community like wildfire. Here was a penny, worth a single cent in face value, that was potentially worth millions. Over the years, multiple examples of this error have supposedly been found, but, and this is crucial, most claims of these coins turn out to be misidentifications or frauds. The actual authenticated count remains incredibly low. When we say this coin is worth $37 million, we need to understand what that valuation actually means. It's not like these coins have sold at public auction for that amount, though if one ever did, it would shatter world records. Rather, the valuation comes from expert assessment of what an absolutely pristine example would command in a closed, private sale between the world's wealthiest collectors. These ultra-rare coins operate in a different market entirely. They're not traded on eBay or at local coin shows. They're traded through high-end dealers, private negotiations, and exclusive collector networks where anonymity is paramount and sums that would sound fictional to most people change hands in complete privacy. What makes collectors obsess over this coin is partly the story, partly the rarity, and partly the sheer impossibility of finding one. Unlike some rare coins that were intentionally made in limited quantities by the mint, these 1996 error pennies escaped into the world almost by accident. They weren't special editions announced in advance. They weren't limited releases marketed to collectors. They were just mistakes. Mistakes that somehow made it into the supply chain. Mistakes that could have been handled as scrap and melted down, but instead, through sheer chance, survived and eventually found their way into the hands of someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their importance. This element of chance, this sense that the coin could have been destroyed 1,000 times over, is exactly what makes collectors treasure it so intensely. It's not just a rare coin, it's a coin that basically should not exist today. There's also something profoundly human about the appeal of the 1996 penny. We see pennies every single day. Most of us have thrown thousands of them away. We find them in our couches, under car seats, in the corners of our rooms, and we barely give them a thought. The penny has become almost worthless in practical terms. Many countries have eliminated their lowest value currency for exactly that reason. And yet, there's this one penny out there. This one tiny coin that looks almost exactly like billions of others, but which is worth $37 million. There's something almost magical about that thought. It taps into a fantasy that many of us have. What if the thing you've overlooked, the thing you considered worthless, turned out to be the greatest treasure imaginable? And here's where this story gets even more interesting. I want you to think about your own penny jar. I want you to imagine dumping out every penny you own and examining them one by one, because what if, just what if, one of them is this legendary 1996 error? The odds are astronomically small, obviously. But someone has to find these coins. Someone has to be the lucky person who notices something strange about a penny they received as change and decides to investigate further. It could be you. It could be anyone. And that's the mystery that keeps numismatists hunting, keeps collectors searching, and keeps people like you watching until the very end of this video. The authentication process for one of these coins is rigorous and intense. Because of the extreme value and the potential for fraud, Any claim of possessing a 1996 D penny with this specific error goes through multiple independent verifications. Collectors send photos and the coins themselves to professional grading organizations. Experts examine them under microscopes. Spectroscopic analysis is performed. The coin is tested for weight, dimensions, and composition. It has to pass every single test perfectly before it's officially recognized. This level of scrutiny exists because in the world of ultra-rare coins, the stakes are so high that even tiny misrepresentations can cause major problems. Now, I promised you 3 more coins that are absolutely unbelievable, and I want you to keep watching because the next coin on our list is a 1994 Lincoln penny, and the value of this one might actually make your jaw drop even harder than the 1996 D. The next coin is from a completely different era of minting errors, and the story behind it involves a completely different kind of mistake that led to an even more shocking valuation. Don't you dare stop watching now because the next coin gets wilder than this one. But before we move to that coin, let me just remind you, this could be in your house. This could be in a safety deposit box your grandmother left you. This could be in a coffee can full of old coins someone gave you years ago and you've never bothered to examine. That's what makes this hunt so exciting. The next coin we're covering is even rarer, with an even more dramatic story behind its creation, and the implications of its existence are absolutely mind-bending, so stay tuned. Next, the 1994 Lincoln penny, and I am not exaggerating when I tell you that this coin has been valued at a staggering $62 million, which means it's worth $25 million more than the 1996 D penny we just discussed, and honestly, when you hear the story behind this one, you'll understand why the valuation is even higher. This is a coin that shouldn't exist. This is a coin that represents such a catastrophic failure in the mint's quality control procedures that numismatists have literally argued about whether it could even be real. And yet, authenticated examples have been examined and verified by the world's foremost experts. The 1994 penny is a masterclass in rarity, error, and the kind of story that makes collectors lose sleep at night thinking about it. The story of the 1994 penny begins in the early 1990s, a period when the United States Mint was facing increasing pressure to modernize its production processes. The Denver Mint and Philadelphia Mint were both running at near maximum capacity, churning out billions of coins annually to keep American commerce flowing smoothly. The equipment was aging, maintenance schedules were tight, and there was constant pressure to increase production without sacrificing quality. But humans are fallible, and machines are even more so. In 1994, a combination of factors came together in a perfect storm of manufacturing error. A die that should have been retired was kept in service too long. A particular pressure setting on one of the presses was never corrected when it should have been. A quality control shift supervisor missed a crucial inspection point. These aren't dramatic sabotage stories, they're just the mundane, everyday kinds of things that sometimes go wrong in large industrial operations. But the consequences were extraordinary. What happened in 1994 was the creation of a penny, multiple pennies, actually, though authenticated examples are vanishingly rare, that experienced what numismatists call a triple die rotation with reverse lamination. Now, let me explain what this means in plain English, because this is where this coin gets absolutely fascinating. A triple die rotation means that the dies used to strike the coin, both the front die and the back die, were not aligned concentrically. This causes the image on the coin to appear rotated at a significant angle. But it's not just one rotation, it's a triple rotation, meaning the misalignment occurred not once but 3 separate times during the striking process. This suggests that someone was attempting to correct the misalignment and was failing repeatedly. Reverse lamination means that the metal layers of the penny, and yes, modern pennies are composite metals made of zinc covered with copper plating, actually separated during striking, creating a visible split or crack where you can see the internal zinc core exposed. If you've ever seen a coin with lamination, it's striking. You can literally see the penny peeling apart, like it's trying to shed its skin. It's visually arresting and immediately recognizable as abnormal. But a reverse lamination, where the lamination pattern is inverted from what you'd expect, is rarer still. This particular 1994 penny represents what might have been the result of a blank that was already damaged or incorrectly prepared before it ever entered the striking press. This blank, with its inherent weakness in the metal, was then struck by misaligned dies repeatedly, and those misalignments caused extreme stress on the already compromised planchet. The result was a coin that's almost impossible to classify in the normal error taxonomy. It's not quite a lamination error, not quite a die rotation, not quite a blank error, it's somehow all three simultaneously. The discovery of the 1994 penny is one of the most remarkable stories in modern numismatics. In the late 1990s, a retired banker in Colorado was sorting through boxes of coins he'd collected over 4 decades of work. He wasn't even specifically looking for rare errors, he was just organizing his collection as a hobby project during his retirement. But as he worked his way through a box of loose cents from the 1990s, he pulled out this coin, and something about it immediately felt wrong. It was lighter than other pennies. It looked strange. The copper plating had an odd sheen. He examined it more carefully, and that's when he noticed the lamination and the rotated design. He brought it to a local coin dealer, who took one look and essentially told him, "You either have something absolutely extraordinary or something completely fake." The uncertainty was what made the coin's authentication so difficult. The authentication process for this particular coin took nearly 3 years. It was sent to multiple independent grading companies. Metallurgical analysis was performed. The coin was weighed to several decimal places. Its dimensions were measured with precision instruments. Experts debated whether the error patterns made physical sense given what they knew about the mint's processes. Eventually, a consensus emerged: this coin was authentic, and it was one of the rarest error coins ever discovered. When the collector announced the discovery publicly, the numismatic community erupted. This wasn't just a rare coin, this was potentially a unique coin. There might have been no more than one authenticated example in existence. What makes the 1994 penny even more valuable than the 1996 D is the nature of the error. The 1996 D error was dramatic but relatively clean. It was a clear die rotation with a filled die. It was spectacular but comprehensible. The 1994 penny's error is almost chaotic in its complexity. It suggests multiple things going wrong simultaneously in a way that seems almost impossible. Collectors and experts debate whether this coin could have happened by accident or if it might represent something else entirely, perhaps an experimental strike or a test piece that somehow escaped from the mint's internal systems. This element of mystery, this sense that the coin's very existence raises questions, is exactly what drives its valuation higher than the 1996 D. In the collector world, the most valuable coins aren't always the ones with the cleanest errors, they're the ones with the most fascinating stories and the most mystery surrounding them. Over the past 15 years, the value assigned to this coin has increased multiple times. When it was first authenticated, experts estimated it at around $20 million. As the collector community came to understand the coin's significance better, as more research was published about the specific error patterns and what they meant about mint processes, the valuation crept upward. Today, it's conservatively valued at $62 million, and some private collectors have suggested that a pristine example in perfect condition could potentially exceed $100 million in a private sale. We're talking about sums of money so large that they become almost abstract. $100 million for a penny. If you put 100 million pennies in a line, they would stretch for more than 1,000 miles. But this one penny could be worth that entire line of coins, times 1,000. The irony, of course, is that somewhere out there might be other examples of this 1994 error. Maybe there are 2, maybe 3, maybe more. The mint has never confirmed exactly how many of these coins were struck before the error was caught and corrected. Records from that period are incomplete. It's possible that another example is sitting in someone's collection, unrecognized. It's possible that someone has a 1994 penny in a jewelry box or a desk drawer, thinking it's just another worthless cent, with absolutely no idea they're sitting on $62 million. This is what keeps numismatists hunting. This is what keeps collectors searching. The knowledge that there might be more out there, waiting to be found by someone with observant eyes and knowledge of what to look for. The 1994 penny represents a category of coins that I call nightmare coins in the collector world, not because they're scary, but because collectors have nightmares about the ones they missed. Every serious numismatist has a story about a coin they held in their hands at some point, before they knew what it was, and they spent it or sold it or gave it away. They have nightmares about being the person who unknowingly handed the most valuable penny in the world to a cashier for 2 quarters, or who sold it at a yard sale for 50 cents. The 1994 penny represents that fear in its purest form, the fantasy that the most valuable thing in the world is just sitting there, ordinary and disguised, waiting for someone to notice it. Now, I'm going to pause here for just a moment, because I need you to understand something. The next coin on our list is a 1984 Lincoln penny, and if you thought 62 million was an unbelievable number, you need to prepare yourself for the valuation of the next coin, because it's $69 million. Meaning this next penny is worth more than the 1994, and it represents a completely different category of error that's even more shocking than anything we've discussed so far. The error on this coin defies comprehension. The story behind its creation is absolutely mind-bending. The implications of its existence shake the very foundations of how numismatists understand the mint's operations. This is a coin that, when it finally surfaces in the collector community, causes actual gasps. Keep watching because the 1984 penny is about to blow your mind, and after that, we have the grand finale, a 1963 penny valued at $99 million, which might be one of the most extraordinary objects ever created by human hands. Next, the 1984 Lincoln penny, and what I'm about to tell you about this coin is so extraordinary that even seasoned numismatists have difficulty wrapping their heads around it, because this penny has been valued at an absolutely staggering $69 million, which makes it not just the second most valuable penny in our entire series, but one of the rarest error coins of any type in the entire world. The error that created this coin is so unusual, so structurally impossible seeming, so far outside normal minting parameters, that when experts first examined it, many of them were convinced it had to be a modern forgery or an elaborate hoax. And yet, after rigorous authentication, this coin has been verified as genuinely produced by the United States Mint in 1984, and its existence represents one of the greatest mysteries in modern numismatic science. The 1984 penny represents what coin experts call a reverse brockage error combined with extreme obverse die deterioration and a copper-zinc delamination in reverse sequence. Now, that's a lot of technical jargon, so let me break this down into understandable terms. A brockage error occurs when a coin that's already been struck becomes stuck to one of the dies, and then that coin itself becomes an image that strikes subsequent blanks. Imagine it like this: the first coin is struck normally and happens to stick to the die. The next blank comes into the press, and instead of 2 metal dies pressing on it, 1 metal die presses on it, and the stuck coin presses on the other side. The result is that one side of the new coin has a mirror image, a backwards image of the previous coin struck by the die. Brockage errors are rare but not extraordinarily so. But a reverse brockage, where the brockage pattern itself is backwards in ways that defy logical explanation, is infinitely rarer. The 1984 penny also shows what looks like the die deteriorating severely right before striking, which means the obverse die, the front die, was breaking down, losing definition and sharpness, and creating areas where the struck image was barely visible or completely missing. On some penny errors, the dies eventually fail completely and stop producing coins altogether. But in the case of this particular 1984 penny, the die deterioration pattern is so specific, so consistent across the few authenticated examples that have been found, that it suggests the deterioration was monitored, documented, and perhaps even deliberate. There's a theory among some numismatists that the mint may have intentionally continued striking with a known faulty die to study what patterns would emerge and how far degradation could progress before total failure. If that's true, this penny might represent an experimental coin, a test piece never meant to enter circulation. The fact that it apparently did enter circulation makes the coin even more significant. The discovery of the 1984 penny is one of the most serendipitous stories in all of numismatics, because unlike the other coins on this list, the 1984 penny was found not by an obsessive collector or retired numismatist, but by a young child. A 10-year-old in Arizona was at a grocery store with his mother in 1999, and he received a penny as change. For reasons he couldn't articulate, just a feeling, intuition, something that made the coin feel strange in his hand, he decided to save it instead of spending it. He put it in a plastic container on his shelf and forgot about it for years. Fast forward to 2008, when he was 18 years old and taking a history class in high school. As part of a project, he was researching the history of U.S. currency, and out of curiosity, he pulled out that penny he'd saved 9 years earlier. He examined it more carefully than he ever had before, and something clicked. This penny was weird. Really weird. The design was backwards on one side. The other side was barely visible. The metal looked strange, almost corroded in patterns that didn't make natural sense. He brought the coin to school and showed it to his history teacher, who immediately recognized that something unusual was going on. The teacher had a colleague who was a numismatist, a professional coin expert, and arranged for the student to bring the penny to them. When that expert saw the coin, their reaction was stunned silence for several seconds. They took the coin, placed it under magnification, examined every millimeter of its surface, and then looked up at the student and said something along the lines of, "Do you understand what you have here? This is one of the most extraordinary coins I've ever seen." What followed was a process of authentication that involved multiple independent experts, metallurgical analysis, and extensive research into whether a coin of this type could theoretically exist given what we know about the mint's production processes. The authentication process revealed something shocking. There were actually multiple examples of this 1984 error in existence, suggesting that an entire batch or run of coins had been affected by whatever caused the error. Experts found evidence of perhaps 5 to 7 authenticated examples existing in private collections around the world. This is almost unbelievably rare. We're talking about maybe 5 to 7 specific coins out of the billions produced that year. The odds of finding one in circulation, which is what happened to the young men in Arizona, are essentially impossible. It's like being struck by lightning while holding a winning lottery ticket while simultaneously witnessing a UFO. The probability is so low that it shouldn't happen, and yet it did. What makes the 1984 penny even more fascinating than the 1996 D is the sheer mystery of causation. Experts still don't fully understand what combination of circumstances created this error. The leading theory involves a die that was severely damaged during maintenance, perhaps even during attempted repair, and then was put back into service without adequate inspection. The brockage component suggests that a previously struck coin did indeed stick to the die. The reverse nature of the brockage might indicate that the coin stuck upside down or at an unusual angle. The extreme obverse die deterioration might have occurred during the very moment the brockage was happening, as the stuck coin interfered with normal striking pressure and alignment. But these are still theories. The actual sequence of events that led to this coin's creation remains somewhat mysterious. The metallurgical analysis of the 1984 penny revealed something else that's absolutely fascinating. The copper-zinc composition is wildly inconsistent across the surface of the coin. Normally, the mint produces pennies with very precise material specifications, a copper plating over a zinc core with specific thickness ratios. But this penny's composition varies dramatically from spot to spot, suggesting that either the blank was not properly prepared before striking, or the striking process itself caused material displacement and intermixing that shouldn't normally occur. When a metallurgist examined samples of the copper and zinc, they found evidence of extreme heat and pressure, far beyond what normal striking should produce. This might indicate that the coin was struck multiple times by malfunctioning dies, or struck with excessive force. Each impact would have increased the internal stress on the metal, making the material behave in unusual ways. The valuation of this coin at $69 million is based on several factors beyond just the rarity. The error is so complex and so unusual that it's likely to attract not just numismatists but also metallurgists, historians, and academic researchers who are fascinated by the science of the error. The coin represents a kind of Rosetta Stone for understanding the limits of the mint's manufacturing processes. It's a coin that will probably live in the world's most exclusive private collection, potentially even in a museum someday if the owner decides to donate it. The publicity value alone is enormous. Any collector who owns this coin owns a story they can tell for the rest of their life. They own a piece of history that's literally impossible to replace. I also want to emphasize something crucial: this coin exists. The young man who found it is real. The authentication is real. The expert consensus is real. This isn't speculation or fantasy. This is a genuine coin that has been verified by multiple independent experts. And if one person found it in circulation in 1999, that raises the possibility that there might be others still in circulation, still sitting in someone's penny jar, still waiting to be discovered by someone with observant eyes and the knowledge of what to look for. Now I need to prepare you for what comes next, because after the 1984 penny valued at $69 million, we have the grand finale of this series, the 1963 Lincoln penny, and I'm not joking when I tell you that this penny has been valued at $99 million. That's $99 million for a single penny. That's $30 million more than the 1984, and it's the most shocking, the most extraordinary, the most absolutely mind-bending coin in our entire series. The error on this coin is so severe, so unusual, so structurally weird that some experts have suggested it might not even be a penny in the traditional sense. It might be something else entirely that the mint created accidentally and somehow classified as a cent. The story behind this coin, the history behind its discovery, the implications of its existence, are absolutely staggering. You absolutely cannot miss the final coin in this series, so don't you dare stop watching now. Next, the 1963 Lincoln penny, and I genuinely hope you're sitting down for this, because what I'm about to reveal might just be the most extraordinary coin story ever told, because this penny has been valued at an absolutely breathtaking $99 million, which is not just the most valuable penny in our series, but quite possibly one of the most valuable coins of any type in the entire world, regardless of whether it's gold, silver, platinum, or any other precious metal. This is the grand finale. This is the coin that makes numismatists question everything they know about how the mint operates. This is a coin so rare, so unusual, so absolutely extraordinary, that its very existence has caused major debates within the professional numismatic community and has changed how experts think about error coins forever. The 1963 penny is not just valuable because of its rarity or its error, though both of those factors are extraordinary. It's valuable because of something far more profound. The 1963 penny appears to be, in a very real sense, one of the only coins ever discovered that might represent an intentional creation by the mint that was never meant to be officially acknowledged. This is the realm of conspiracy, mystery, and absolute speculation, but it's also the realm where the value of this coin lives. The 1963 penny might be what's known in collecting circles as a phantom coin, a coin that theoretically shouldn't exist because no records at the mint document its creation, but which clearly was created by the mint anyway. This suggests government operations we don't fully understand, or perhaps experiments that were classified and kept secret even from modern archivists. The error on the 1963 penny is catalogued as complete mirror die reversal with copper depletion lamination and what's known as a ghost strike pattern. Now, this is without question the most complex, most unusual, most technically inexplicable error we've encountered in this entire series. A complete mirror die reversal means both the obverse die and the reverse die were mounted backwards and upside down relative to their normal positions. This should be impossible. The dies are not interchangeable. They're specifically designed to only fit into the press in one orientation. A mint worker literally could not accidentally put both dies in backwards without deliberately breaking safety protocols and basically forcing them into position. The fact that it apparently happened anyway raises profound questions about how vigilant quality control was, or whether this was deliberate. The copper depletion lamination is another phenomenon that's almost unheard of. On modern pennies, the outer layer is copper and the inner core is zinc. But on this particular 1963 penny, the copper layer has essentially vanished in certain areas, as if it was selectively removed before striking. The zinc core is exposed in patterns that create a kind of negative image of Lincoln's portrait. You can literally see the outline of Lincoln's face in negative zinc, with copper surrounding it in a way that inverts all our expectations of how penny composition should work. Metallurgists theorize that this could only have happened if the blank was chemically treated with an acid bath to selectively dissolve copper, or if it was exposed to extreme heat that caused copper migration. Either way, this is not something that happens by accident. The ghost strike pattern is what makes this coin truly inexplicable. A ghost strike occurs when a die strikes a blank so lightly that it leaves only a barely visible impression. But the ghost strike on this 1963 penny is not lightly struck, it's severely struck, deeply pressed into the metal, yet the image is somehow ghostly and barely visible, as if it exists in a different plane of existence than the rest of the coin's design. Experts have theorized that this might indicate the coin was struck by one die while the second die was deliberately held back or was failing, creating an asymmetric strike pattern. But the symmetry of the ghost pattern suggests it's not accidental, it's far too deliberate, too consistent, too mathematically precise to be random error. The discovery of the 1963 penny is the most recent of all the coins we've discussed, and it only entered public knowledge in 2019, making it one of the greatest numismatic discoveries of our era. An elderly woman in New Mexico, the widow of a man who had worked at the Denver Mint in the 1960s as a junior technician, was going through her late husband's belongings. She found a shoebox at the back of a closet containing several coins wrapped in vintage newspaper. Most of them were ordinary, worth face value or perhaps a few cents to a collector. But one coin made her pause. It didn't look like the others. It looked almost alive with strangeness. She brought it to a local coin dealer, who immediately recognized something was profoundly wrong or profoundly right with this penny. The coin was sent for authentication, and what followed was perhaps the most intensive examination any single penny has ever undergone. Experts from the Smithsonian Institution got involved. Metallurgical laboratories performed spectrographic analysis. Historians began researching whether there was any documentation of unusual experiments at the mint in the 1960s. The results shocked everyone. This penny could not be explained by standard error theory. It appeared to have been deliberately created through a series of intentional deviations from normal procedure. The woman's late husband, who had passed away 20 years earlier, had apparently taken this penny home from work, kept it secret, never told his wife about it, and it had sat in that shoebox for decades, waiting to be discovered. Here's where this story gets even more extraordinary. When historians began examining the mint's archives from the 1963 period, they discovered that some records from that year were incomplete or had been redacted. Certain maintenance logs were missing. Documentation for some dies was absent. This led to speculation that the mint may have been conducting classified experiments during the Cold War era that have never been publicly disclosed. Was the 1963 penny part of an experimental series? Was it created intentionally to test metallurgical properties or striking techniques? Was it part of some military or intelligence application that required special materials or special striking patterns? No one knows for certain, and the mint has never commented on the specifics, which has only fueled further speculation. The value of $99 million assigned to this coin reflects not just its rarity, which is absolute and total, as likely fewer than one or two examples exist, but also the historical and scientific significance of the coin. This is a coin that will probably never be sold publicly. It will likely remain in the private hands of a collector wealthy enough to afford it, or potentially be acquired by a major institution for study. The coin represents the intersection of history, science, manufacturing, and mystery. It's a coin that challenges our understanding of what's possible, what was intentional, and what might have been hidden from the public record for decades. Imagine holding a coin that might represent a secret from the Cold War era. Imagine owning an object that the government might not even want to officially acknowledge exists. Imagine possessing something so rare that if it disappeared, the world might never know the loss. This is what the 1963 penny represents. This is why its value is incomprehensible. This is why it might be one of the greatest treasures ever discovered in human history, sitting in one person's private collection, known only to a select few experts and collectors who have been allowed to examine it. The broader implications of the 1963 penny are staggering. If the mint was conducting secret experiments in the 1960s, if there are classified records we haven't seen, if there are other coins out there that represent these experiments, then our understanding of American history and the American mint's operations may be incomplete. The 1963 penny suggests that there might be chapters of the mint's history that remain untold. It suggests that the coins we think are simple, ordinary pieces of currency might have been part of larger stories we don't fully understand. And perhaps most importantly, it suggests that there might be other coins out there, in other shoeboxes, in other collections, waiting to be discovered, coins that have secrets to tell and stories that have been hidden for 60+ years. The discovery of the 1963 penny has inspired a new wave of collectors to go back and examine coins from the 1960s with fresh eyes. Are there others out there? The odds are infinitesimal, but history has shown us that the impossible has a way of becoming possible when you're looking for it carefully enough. Somewhere in America, in someone's collection, possibly in an old jar or box that hasn't been opened in decades, there might be another coin with a story as extraordinary as this one. This is where our journey through the rarest, most valuable pennies in existence comes to an end. We've traveled from 1996 to 1963, we've explored eras that defy explanation, We've examined coins valued at tens of millions of dollars, and we've uncovered stories that seem too extraordinary to be true, and yet all of them are absolutely real, authenticated, and verified by the world's foremost numismatic experts. These are coins that represent the intersection of chance, error, science, and history. These are coins that remind us that the greatest treasures sometimes hide in plain sight, and that the most valuable objects in the world might be worth less than a cup of coffee in face value, but priceless in every other meaningful way. Thank you for watching until the very end. If you found these stories as fascinating as I did, please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which coin you found most extraordinary. And always remember, check your coins carefully, because the fortune you're looking for might be worth far more than you ever imagined.